Hey everyone, and welcome back to BMX News. This is a weekly BMX news show where I talk about everything that happened in the previous week within the world of BMX that I think you guys might care about. And that being said, we all know that the world is kind of crazy right now. Things in the US are particularly crazy with all of the protests and everything going on with that. And normally with this BMX news show, I try not to get political, but something happened and came to light in the previous week that I feel like I have to talk about, and I feel like I need to approach it in a thoughtful way so that I say it in the best way possible. And with that, I'm just going to start at the beginning. Sean Moore, you guys might remember him from a couple years ago in BMX when he was a pretty huge name. He posted on his Instagram page about a story from 2012 where he was on a Madera trip and they were riding this spot, and someone came out of their apartment and kicked them out of the spot or yelled at them to leave, so that they did. And then on their way out, the team manager for Madera yelled out the window a racial slur at this person. And up until now, at least as far as I'm aware, Sean hasn't talked about this publicly, but he talked about how it affected him and how not too long after this happened, he was let go from the Madera team, even though he felt at the time he was working much harder than everyone else on the team and that he was more active in videos and magazines. So now we're here in 2020 where he posts this at a pretty appropriate time. So several days go by and there was just nothingness. There was so many comments on this post. Mike Hinkins himself, the team manager for Madera and the person who allegedly did this, commented on it, and then he posted a video response which was him clearly reading a script as an apology. So that was not very well received. All of the while, a lot of mainstream BMX was on Sean Moore's post in support of him. So what came next was silence again for a couple days, maybe a day or two, and then last night almost all of the Madera team quit Madera. Every single person except for Dylan McCulley. So that list is as follows: Eric Elstrand, Dan Crook, Jake Seeley, Grant Castelluzzo, Taylor Thompson, Jeff Dowling, Mike Stahl, Isaiah Johnson, and Jesse Romano all posted on Instagram last night within the same several hour period that they would no longer be riding for Madera. The only person who didn't was Dylan McCulley, who posted an Instagram story saying what you're seeing on the screen right now. He just basically didn't agree with it and that he's not leaving Madera. And according to the posting times on Instagram, I believe Jake Seeley was the first person to post this. And then an hour later, like I said, according to the posting times on Instagram, because all we get is something at the bottom of the post under the comments that says this many hours ago, this was posted. So according to that timing, an hour after Jake Seeley left the team, Madera posted publicly on their Instagram that Mike Hinkins was no longer the team manager and that they condemned everything that he did and racism and all of those things that are currently at the forefront of attention here in the US. So where does that put us? Everyone except for Dylan McCulley is off of Madera. Mike Hinkins is fired from Madera. And with this, there are a lot of people online calling for Profile to make a statement or just do something about this in general, because Profile and Madera are sister companies. Profile owns Madera. And I feel like a big reason that so many people are so mad about this is because it's taken days for anyone to say anything about this or anyone to do anything about this. This should have been handled the day that it came out. But here is what the problem is with the BMX industry. I feel like this is exactly what happened. And I could be completely wrong with this, but this is the general feel that I get from BMX, because everyone in BMX is so scared to jeopardize their position in BMX that they are so scared to speak up about anything. That's why situations like this don't come out until 8 years later, because people like Sean are scared to lose their $500 a month paycheck for speaking out against something that the person who's in charge of his paychecks actually did himself. This is everywhere in BMX. This is why BMX doesn't get policed for people and attitudes and mindsets the way that it does for tricks. People don't check people on the terrible things that they do and say because they're scared to lose their position in BMX. And I really hope that this whole situation and how it's been handled shows that you cannot do that. Everyone left the Madera team last night, and while it's impossible to say whether or not everyone left because of what Mike Hinkins did or because of the fact that he was fired, we can look at what these riders have said, even Dylan, who's staying on Madera, and look at what he said, and I feel like it kind of points in the direction that everyone left because of the fact that Mike Hinkins did this. This was something that should have been handled back in 2012 when it happened, and Sean Moore should not have had to feel like he could not speak up about this, one, because he was the only person of color involved in this situation, and 2, because he's afraid that he was going to lose his paycheck, which he ended up losing anyways, even though he felt like he was one of the most hardworking people on the team at the time. There is a general accountability problem in BMX, and people make jokes and memes and have terrible mindsets and attitudes about things, and no one ever gets checked on it because they're too scared to get blacklisted and kicked out of BMX. Well, I'm here to say that your $500 a month paycheck isn't worth letting things happen in BMX and letting these people who don't deserve to be in their positions be in their positions. Everyone can think of someone off the top of their head right now who should not be where they are because of their mindset, their work ethic, or things that they have done, and that is rampant in BMX. And it's terrible that things like this have to come out 8 years later, and it takes the entire US uproaring in protest for it to come out. And so while I normally try to keep the politics out of these things, this is something that could not be ignored and had to be talked about. And while I really don't want to admit that I have some sort of platform with this, there's no hiding the fact that there is a platform with this BMX news and this channel in general, and I wanted to use it in a positive way with this message, and I really hope that it can change at least some mindsets out there, or at least get you guys to think about things. Thinking about things is what is most important right now, and considering your actions and thoughts, and considering how you're going to change them or how you're going to act moving forward when things like this happen and you're around. So with all of that being said, where are we at with this? Well, Madera basically doesn't have a BMX team anymore. They've got one rider and no team manager. And the question has come up, do we cancel Mike Hinkins in BMX? Do we kick him out of BMX entirely? And I feel like the answer to that question lies in Mike Hinkins himself, because people can change. People do change. It's been 8 years. It is entirely possible that Mike Hinkins is not entirely possible. Mike Hinkins is most likely a completely different person than he was 8 years ago, whether that's good or bad. And we should judge him based on his character today. And I don't know whether or not we should cancel him entirely from BMX for something that happened 8 years ago, whenever he could be a completely different person today. And that's something that I feel like we should consider, but we should also consider the fact that some people might have known about this or known about these tendencies, because we don't know. It's possible that he's still this same person and people have just been hiding it or making excuses for it or just covering it up in general. And if that's the case, we should be canceling everyone who's doing this and hiding it and keeping someone like that in their position, because it's just wrong. There is a huge difference between these two things. Someone who has done something in the past that they realized was terrible, they realized their bad tendencies, and they've worked on them, changed them, and made themselves a better person, and realized it was wrong and apologized for it and tries to make it right. That is the redeemable part of this, and this is what I would say would be one way that we shouldn't cancel someone like this, because we have all made huge mistakes in the past and done things that we hugely regret, and we don't want to be judged for things that happened 8 years ago and kicked completely out of what we love so much for something, even though we worked hard to change it and become better based on it. But the other side of that coin is what I just talked about. And if he's still the same person with the same tendencies and does these things and he just hides it, or people hide it for him, then that's the case where we should cancel someone for doing something like this, because they're still the same person. They don't deserve to be where they're at. And that is how I try to approach things from both sides. And I hope that I approach this in a thoughtful enough way to make you think about both sides, so that we can evaluate how to move forward with this situation and how we can prevent situations like this from coming up again in the future. And my final thought on this is that we cannot control everyone who rides BMX and make sure that these happens, but who we can control is ourselves. That means you watching this video and listening can control these things and not stay silent when you see something like this happen. And with that, I want that to be the main focus of this week's BMX news video, but there are a lot of good things that happened this week, a lot of great videos that came out. So I do want to talk about those videos and give you guys something to watch, and they all are listed in the description down below. I'm just not going to go super in depth about anything today, because like I said, I wanted that first part to be the main focus. And with that, the first thing that I have to talk about, Brad Sims did have his Welcome to Fit video come out last week right after the BMX News video, and I missed talking about it then. But he also had a comment on Madera's post letting everyone know that Mike Hinkins was fired. That is so well thought out and well spoken and well stated that everyone needs to read it. So it's on the screen right now. You can pause it and read it. If you want more time, you can go to the post itself and find it and read it. I think everyone should, and everyone should check out his Welcome to Fit video because we all know Brad Sims is a beast and he's going to be doing big things with Fit. Then after that, we've got a few different contests and jam things to talk about. The first is that Powers Bike Shop is doing a Game of Bike Championship, and they're doing this in a pretty cool way with 8 riders from the East Coast. A few of them are pretty recognizable names. Dan Conway, Ryan Gutler's even on here, and Declan Murray, just to name a couple of them. And they're going to have 11 games of bike total. And each week they're going to upload another Game of Bike video from a randomly selected skate park along the East Coast until it's over. And this is pretty cool. And it's sponsored by We the People, Eclat, and Radio. And even cooler than this is that everyone can get involved with it because they're going to have March Madness style brackets online for people to fill out and get involved in, where the winner gets a $150 gift card to We the People, Radio Bikes, and Eclat. It's pretty awesome to get everyone involved, as well as involve all these riders in places along the East Coast. Really awesome concept, and I'm psyched to see the videos as they come out. And then we had so many Battle of Hastings video qualifiers that came out this week that I'm just going to list through them real quick. Gage Sharp, Jack Folger, Yumi Ashimo, Chris Gonzalez, Dylan Ashlock, Billy Kennedy, and Ryoto Miyagi. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. But this is pretty cool to see that there's actually some competition now, because there were so few videos before this that there really wasn't that much competition. I'm excited to see who wins, and I kind of hope that it's Gage Sharp now because he's local to me, and it would just be awesome to see someone that I know win this and go to the Battle of Hastings. And then we had a bunch of different videos come out this week that are worth talking about. The first one is an amazing video from Ryan Nyquist called 4041. Then we've got a street video from Ethan Corriere called Sleeper, and that comes from Fit, obviously. Then we've got a Madera video, which is probably the last full Madera team video that's going to come out for quite a while now, depending upon what happens. But the team is in Sacramento, so if you guys want to check out their last trip together, you can watch that one. Then we've got Van Homan's section from the family video in 2005. A lot of you are going to be psyched if you're even still here watching this and you're not watching it already. Then another one that's going to get you psyched is Edwin and Tom White's section from the Fit Life DVD that came out in 2007. So you're probably watching that one now. I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore. And then we had a longer video come out from BSD called Recording. This one's got an all-star lineup in it with Alex Donachie, Sam Jones, Liam Zingbergs, Guy Scroggie, David Grant, Noah Hunsinger, and Chris Kyle. It's a lot of good names. You're probably going to want to check it out, and it's just over 15 minutes long, so if you want a longer video, this one's for you. And then we had X Games put out a pretty cool video of the best of Scotty Cranmer. So that's it for the videos this week. We do have some product related things to talk about. There was a quick 1-minute promo video from S&M with Mike Stahl promoting his Green Goblin colorway of the Holy Diver frame. Then we had another S&M video. This is a Halahan Bros bike check, because if you guys didn't know, the Halahan Bros are now riding for S&M. They all got new bikes, and this video is their bike checks. And then after that, we've got several different interviews to talk about. The first one is with Ryan Mills from Vital BMX, and it's called 4 Years Sober. This one asks a few related questions to the title at the beginning, some riding stuff, some quarantine stuff, some future plan stuff. And then after that, there's another Vital BMX interview, this time with Nick Bruce, talking about the contest that didn't count that we talked about in last week's video, but they go in depth with it a little bit more, talking about his feelings and just some more information about it in general. That one's honestly a bummer for me to hear. One, because Nick Bruce is an Ohio guy, and two, because I literally cannot imagine how bummed and what I would feel like if I was in the position that he was in and then in the position that he's in now. He literally caught the US up to first place in points so that they would have 2 people qualified for the Olympics, and he was one of them. And then he was just told that that contest didn't count, and now he's got to compete in another contest to try to do the same thing again to be put into the same position, and I just can't imagine that. So if you guys want to check out this interview, it is linked in the description below. And then we had a pro Q&A from RBMX with Austin Augie. This was over 17 minutes of questions and answers, and I honestly honestly really enjoyed this one. Austin seems like he's got his head on his shoulders and he hasn't been affected by all of the insane amounts of hate that have spewed his way in the past from the general BMX population, and it's pretty good to see, and there's so much good stuff in here that I would recommend anyone to listen to it, honestly. And with that, I'm sure you guys are going to leave your thoughts in the comments down below on the Madera situation that I talked about first in this video. If you do, try to be thoughtful about it, because if you don't and you can't have constructive conversation and you just want to spew hate, I'm not going to delete your comments. I'm just going to let you sit there and look bad. So with that said, if you guys haven't yet, hit the subscribe button down below, and hopefully that'll mean we'll see you next time for another video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.